The Galactic Academy's Xenobiology lecture hall hummed with the usual pre-class chatter. Students from 17 different species filled the tiered seats, their translator implants creating a symphony of overlapping conversations. Near the back, Ilana sat quietly reviewing her notes, her brown hair tied in a practical ponytail, her posture relaxed but alert in the way only humans seem to manage. 3 rows ahead, Vexthor clicked his mandibles in amusement. The Kravik warrior caste member stood nearly 8 feet tall, his exoskeleton gleaming purple-black under the artificial lights. He'd been accepted to the academy on a military scholarship, though most suspected his family's political connections had done the heavy lifting. Another Deathworlder pretending to belong here, Vexthor chittered to his companions, loud enough for half the room to hear. They let anything in these days? Ilana didn't look up. She'd heard worse in her 3 months at the academy. Earth's admission to the galactic community was still fresh, still controversial. Humans were classified as Class 12 Deathworld survivors, a rating that made most species nervous. Their planet's gravity, atmospheric pressure, microbial environment, and predator-prey dynamics were considered borderline uninhabitable by civilized standards. James, sitting beside Ilana, tensed. The young man's jaw clenched, his hands forming fists on the desk. Ilana, he's talking about you again. I know, she replied softly, not taking her eyes off her datapad. Ignore him. Maybe you should report him to James, it's fine. But it wasn't fine for Vexthor. The Kravik had built his reputation on intimidation, on being the apex predator in any room. The fact that this small human female refused to acknowledge him gnawed at his pride like acid. He rose from his seat, his bulk casting shadows across several rows. I'm speaking to you, Deathworlder, Vexthor announced, descending the steps toward Ilana's row. Students scrambled out of his way. Kraviks were known for their aggression, their 4-inch claws, and their complete lack of impulse control. On my world, when a superior addresses you, you respond. Ilana finally looked up, her green eyes meeting his compound ones. We're not on your world, and you're not my superior. The room went silent. Vexthor's mandibles spread wide in what might have been a smile on a creature with different anatomy. You dare? The professor will be here in 3 minutes, Ilana interrupted, her voice steady. I suggest you return to your seat. What happened next occurred so fast that the Academy's security footage would need to be played back at quarter speed for the disciplinary board to understand the sequence of events. Vexthor's arm shot out, his clawed hand aimed at Ilana's face. Not to kill, but to scar, to mark, to teach this arrogant Deathworlder her place in the galactic hierarchy. It was a move that had worked on dozens of other species, all of whom possessed the good sense to fear a Kravik warrior. Ilana wasn't any other species. Her reaction time, honed by a childhood on a planet where everything from the weather to the wildlife actively tried to kill you, was roughly 3 times faster than the galactic average. Her bone density, developed under Earth's crushing gravity, made her skeleton nearly unbreakable, and her muscle fiber composition, evolved to hunt persistence prey across vast distances and to fight off apex predators, gave her strength that no one her size should possess. Vexthor's clawed hand never reached her face. Ilana's left arm came up in a blocking motion that deflected the strike. Simultaneously, her right fist drove upward in a tight arc that connected with the underside of Vexthor's mandible cluster. The impact produced a sound like a gunshot in the enclosed space. The Kravik's head snapped back. His exoskeleton, designed to withstand the low-gravity impacts of his homeworld, shattered around his jaw assembly. Chitin fragments scattered across the lecture hall floor like purple-black confetti. Vexthor staggered backward, a keening wail emerging from his damaged mouthparts, green hemolymph flowing freely down his carapace. He collapsed into the seats behind him, his massive frame crumpling like a puppet with cut strings. The entire exchange had taken less than 10 seconds. Ilana stood slowly, rubbing her knuckles. They'd probably bruise. Kravik exoskeletons were tough, but nothing was broken. She looked down at Vexthor, who was making wet gurgling sounds and clutching his ruined face. You'll live, she said matter-of-factly. Your species has redundant jaw structures. Medical can regenerate that in about 2 weeks. James stared at her, mouth open. Around the room, students from species that had never seen real violence began backing toward the exits. A few Centaurian exchange students were making distressed whistling sounds. The door hissed open and Professor Kelvinthar entered. his eye stalks swiveling to take in the scene. Vexthor collapsed and bleeding, Ilana standing calmly, and a lecture hall full of terrified students. "Miss Santos," the professor said wearily, "please tell me this was self-defense." "He struck first, Professor," James interjected quickly. "At least 15 witnesses." Ilana simply held up her right hand, fingers spread. "Security footage will confirm everything."
"He attacked me."
"I defended myself." Earth's Legal Code, Article 47. Proportional response to immediate physical threat. Professor Kelvin Thar's eye stalks drooped. In his 40 years of teaching, he'd never had to deal with a Death World species before. The handbook on human behavior was still being written, and incidents like this weren't helping. "Medical is on the way," he announced to the room. "Miss Santos, you'll need to come with security for a formal statement." "Understood." "Professor." As the medical team arrived and began loading Vexthor onto an anti-grav stretcher, Ilana gathered her belongings. James moved beside her, his expression somewhere between awe and concern. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "Fine, you? Me? I'm not the one who just hospitalized a Kravik warrior caste." He paused. "That was the most terrifying and impressive thing I've ever seen." Ilana allowed herself a small smile. "Welcome to Earth's evolutionary advantages. We didn't become apex predators on a death world by asking nicely." As they walked toward the door where Academy security waited, whispers followed them through the hall. By dinner, every species in the Academy would know what happened. Some would call for Ilana's expulsion. Others would demand stricter controls on Death World species. But most would simply learn the lesson that Vexthor had learned the hard way. Humans didn't survive their homeworld by being weak. They survived by being harder, faster, and more stubborn than anything that wanted to kill them. And they brought those survival skills with them to the stars. The security officer, a four-armed Delphinian, gestured politely. "Miss Santos, if you'll follow me." "Of course." Ilana glanced back once at the lecture hall where janitor drones were already cleaning up Vexthor's hemolymph. "Tell me, officer, when can I expect to return to class? I have an exam on Thursday and I'd hate to miss it." The officer's skin flickered through several colors expressing confusion. These humans, he thought, absolutely terrifying. And somewhere in the medical wing, as doctors worked to reconstruct his face, Vexthor learned that in the vast and dangerous galaxy, there were still predators more dangerous than himself. They just happened to look harmless.